The bright lights on the bridge of the Earthship horizon dimmed as Captain Eliza Morgan stood watching the stars. It was 2157, and humanity had just begun to explore beyond their solar system when the strange signal came. For weeks, scientists worked to understand the repeating pattern coming from near Saturn. Now they knew. It wasn't random noise, it was a greeting. "They're here," said Communications Officer Peter Hall. His voice was calm, but his hand shook as he pointed to the radar screen. The alien ship appeared suddenly, as if stepping through an invisible door in space. It was massive, at least 5 times larger than the horizon, with a smooth silver surface that reflected the distant sun. "Open a channel," Eliza ordered. She straightened her blue uniform and took a deep breath. In this moment, she represented all of humanity. The main screen flickered. Where they expected to see strange creatures, they instead saw beings that looked almost human. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and faces with eyes and mouths. But their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were much larger than human eyes. "We are the Veldarians," said the alien in the center. "We speak for the Galactic Concord, an alliance of 17 spacefaring species. We come in peace." Over the next few days, the aliens shared their story. The Galactic Concord had existed for thousands of years. They had watched Earth from afar, waiting until humans developed faster-than-light travel before making contact. Now they offered friendship and trade. "Your timing is perfect," said Ambassador Frank Wright during the official welcome ceremony on Earth 1 month later. "With your help, we can solve our biggest problems: climate damage, disease, food shortages." The Veldarian leader, Chief Diplomat Zira, smiled. "We bring gifts of knowledge and technology. The Concord welcomes humanity as its newest member." The changes came quickly. Alien technology helped clean Earth's air and water. New medicines cured diseases that had killed millions. Spaceships that could travel to distant stars were built in orbit. Humans met other alien species and learned about worlds beyond their imagination. Captain Eliza Morgan was promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's first deep space mission. Her new ship, the Discovery, carried a crew of both humans and aliens to explore beyond the edges of known space. "I never thought I'd see this day," Eliza said as she watched Earth grow smaller on the view screen. "Our grandparents dreamed of reaching Mars. Now we're heading to stars hundreds of light years away." Her second-in-command, Joe Martinez, nodded. "The Concord has changed everything. Earth has never been more peaceful or prosperous." But not everyone felt comfortable with the rapid changes. Dr. Susan White, a scientist studying alien technology, noticed strange patterns in the data. "They're only sharing certain types of technology," she told her assistant, Alan Keyes. "And have you noticed how many ships they're building? It's like they're preparing for something." Alan, a quiet man who analyzed data for the Joint Human-Alien research team, had also noticed odd things. "Sometimes I overhear the Veldarians talking when they think no humans are around. They mention something called the Void Swarm, but they change the subject if any humans come near." "We should dig deeper," Susan said, looking over her shoulder to make sure they were alone. "Something doesn't feel right." Meanwhile, in a secret meeting room beneath the New Concord embassy, Zira spoke with other alien leaders. A hologram showed a dark mass moving slowly through distant space. "The humans must not know," said a tall insect-like alien. "If they discover our true reason for coming here." Zira nodded. "They will learn the truth eventually. But by then our ships will be ready and we will be gone." On the wall behind them, a countdown timer silently ticked away the days. Earth had less time than anyone knew. 5 years had passed since first contact. Earth had changed more in these 5 years than in the previous 100. Cities now had tall towers built with alien materials. Flying cars moved between them like busy insects. Hospitals could cure almost any disease with tools that looked like magic to most people. Alan Keyes sat alone in his small office at Concord Intelligence. His job was simple: look for patterns in data from across the galaxy. Most days were boring. Today was different. "That's strange," he said to himself. He stared at his screen where a message had appeared by mistake. It wasn't meant for him, The message was in the alien language, but after 5 years working with them, he could understand most of it. The words evacuation, final phase, and void swarm jumped out at him. He kept reading, his heart beating faster with each word. The message talked about massive ships being built in secret. It mentioned leaving the galaxy within 10 years. But it said nothing about humans joining them. Alan copied the message to his personal device and deleted it from the system. He needed to tell someone he trusted, but who? Most high-ranking humans were too close to the aliens. Then he remembered Admiral Grace Winters. She had always asked tough questions about the Concord's plans. That night, Alan went to Grace's apartment. The Admiral listened as he explained what he had found. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Grace asked, her face serious in the dim light. "Yes," Alan said. "I checked the data 3 times. The Concord is planning to leave our galaxy, and they're not taking us with them. But why?" Grace walked to her window and looked out at the city where human and alien buildings stood side by side. "They're running from something. This void swarm you mentioned. We need to find out what it is." Over the next week, Grace used her high security clearance to access more files. Alan continued looking for patterns in the data. They worked in secret, afraid of what might happen if the Concord discovered them. Zira, the Veldarian diplomat who had first contacted Earth, noticed that someone was accessing restricted files. She traced the access back to Grace's account. But instead of reporting it, she came to Grace's office alone. "You know, don't you?" Zira asked quietly after making sure no one could hear them. Grace studied the blue-skinned alien's face. "About the evacuation?" "Yes. Why didn't you tell us?" Zira's large eyes looked sad. "It wasn't my decision. The Concord's leaders voted to keep humans in the dark. They thought you weren't ready for the truth." "What truth?" Alan asked, stepping from the shadows where he had been hiding. Zira sighed. "The void swarm is coming. It has already eaten dozens of galaxies. Nothing stops it, nothing survives it. The Concord has been running for thousands of years, staying just ahead of it. And now it's coming here," Grace said. "It wasn't a question. Yes, our scientists say it will reach this galaxy in 15 years. We have been building arcs, massive ships that can travel between galaxies, but there isn't room for everyone." Alan's face grew red with anger. "So you just plan to leave us behind without even warning us?" "Many wanted to tell you," Zira said. "But the final vote was to keep it secret. Humans are new to space travel. The Concord leaders didn't think you could help." Grace stood up straight, her military training showing in her posture. "Then they don't know humans very well. We need to tell Earth's leaders immediately." "If you do that," Zira warned, "the Concord might leave sooner and take all their technology with them." "That's a risk we'll have to take," Grace said. "Our people deserve to know the truth, and maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to fight this thing." Zira looked surprised. "Fight the void swarm? That's impossible." Grace smiled grimly. "Humans are good at doing the impossible." The news spread across Earth like wildfire. The aliens were planning to leave. A terrible enemy called the void swarm was coming. Earth had less than 15 years before this enemy would arrive and destroy everything. People reacted with fear. Some rioted in the streets, others locked themselves in their homes. Many begged the aliens to take them along when they left. 3 days after the news broke, the Concord Supreme Council called for a meeting with Earth's leaders. The meeting took place in the United Nations building in New York. Humans from every country watched the broadcast. "We apologize for keeping this secret," said the Concord's leader, a tall being with 4 arms. "We should have told you sooner, but now we must talk about what happens next." President Maria Lopez spoke for Earth. "Will you help us fight this enemy?" The alien leader shook his head. "Fighting is not possible. The void swarm cannot be stopped. It is too big, too powerful. We have tried for thousands of years." "Then will you take us with you?" Maria asked. "We cannot take everyone," the alien said. "Our ships have limited space. We can take perhaps 1 million humans." The room fell silent. Earth had over 10 billion People. 1 million was just a tiny fraction. How will you choose who goes? Asked Maria, her voice shaking with anger. We suggest your best scientists, artists, and leaders. People who can preserve human culture and knowledge. You must choose them quickly. We leave in 5 years. After the meeting, Earth's leaders gathered to discuss their options. Some wanted to fight over the limited spaces on the alien ships. Others suggested a lottery to make it fair. But Professor Jack Miller had a different idea. Jack was a physicist who had worked closely with the aliens. He was known for thinking outside the box. Now he stood before the gathered leaders, a stack of papers in his hand. We don't have to run, he said. I think we can fight. Everyone started talking at once. Admiral Grace Winters called for quiet. Jack, the aliens have been running from this enemy for thousands of years, Grace said. What makes you think we can fight it when they couldn't? Jack placed his papers on the table. Because we think differently. The Concord species all follow logical patterns. That's why they've never tried fighting after their first defeats, but humans are unpredictable. We try the impossible. He showed them his research. Jack had been studying the limited data on the void swarm. He believed it wasn't just a mindless force of nature. It had patterns. It made choices. That meant it could be tricked, trapped, or even hurt. My simulations show only a small chance of victory, Jack admitted. Maybe 5%, but that's better than the 0% chance of survival if we just wait for it to arrive. Some leaders laughed. Others looked thoughtful. President Lopez asked the question on everyone's mind. How do we decide, run or fight? Grace stood up. This affects everyone on Earth. I think everyone should have a say. For the next month, people everywhere debated what to do. Scientists reviewed Jack's research. Military leaders made plans for both fighting and evacuation. Regular people talked about it in their homes and workplaces. Then came the day of the global vote. For the first time in history, every adult on Earth voted on a single question. Should humanity run with the aliens or stay and fight? The voting lasted 24 hours. When it ended, the result was close. By a margin of just 3%, humanity had chosen to fight. When the aliens heard the decision, they were shocked. Their leader met again with President Lopez. This is madness, he said. You are choosing certain death. Maria stood tall. We are choosing to try. That's what humans do. We don't give up, even when things seem impossible. The alien looked at her with what might have been respect. Then we wish you luck, but we will still offer space on our ships for those who change their minds. Thank you, Maria said, but I think you'll find that humans are quite stubborn once we've made a decision. The next 5 years were the busiest in human history. Earth turned all its efforts toward preparing for the fight against the void swarm. Old enemies became friends as countries worked together for the first time. There was no time for old arguments when the whole world faced the same danger. Commander Nathan Davis stood on the surface of the moon, looking up at Earth. The blue planet seemed so peaceful from here, but Nathan knew better. Every factory on Earth now made weapons or ships. Every scientist worked on ways to fight the enemy. Every child learned how important it was to be brave in the coming battle. Beautiful view, isn't it? Asked a voice behind him. Nathan turned to see Olivia Chen walking toward him in her spacesuit. Olivia had been Professor Jack Miller's best student. Now she led the team creating new weapons to fight the void swarm. I never get tired of it, Nathan said. Reminds me what we're fighting for. They looked at the massive structure being built on the moon's surface. It was called the Luna Shield, a giant weapon that could fire powerful energy beams into space. It was just one part of Earth's new defense system. How are the new weapons coming along? Nathan asked. Olivia's face brightened. We had a breakthrough yesterday. The aliens gave us data about the void swarm's biology. It's not just one thing. It's made of billions of small parts that work together, like a giant swarm of insects. We've made a weapon that can break the connections between them. Nathan nodded. That's great news. We need every advantage we can get. Not everyone believed they could win. Each day, more people asked to join the aliens when they left. The Concorde had started building 10 large ships in orbit around Earth. These ships would carry the 1 million humans who would leave with them. Back on Earth, Linda Foster worked in a different way. As Earth's top diplomat, she spent every day talking with the aliens who had chosen to stay behind. Some aliens didn't agree with the Concorde's plan to run away. Others had made friends with humans and wanted to help them fight. "We need more of your advanced technology," Linda told Zira during one of their meetings. "You're taking most of it with you, but there are things we could use to improve our chances." Zira looked uncomfortable. The Concorde leaders don't want to share weapon technology. They're afraid of what humans might do with it in the future. Linda laughed without humor. If there is no future, that won't matter. After many hard talks, Linda got the aliens to share more technology, but time was running out. The Concorde ships were almost ready to leave. The night before the mass exodus, Admiral Grace Winters couldn't sleep. Something had been bothering her for weeks. She went to the Concorde embassy and asked to speak with their military leader. "I've looked at all the defense plans we created together," Grace said. "And I've found problems. Important details were left out. Key strategies won't work the way you said they would." The alien commander looked away. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do," Grace said, her voice hard. "You sabotaged our plans. You wanted us to fail." After hours of talking, the alien finally admitted the truth. Some Concorde leaders thought humans were too dangerous to survive. If humans somehow beat the Void Swarm, they might become the new power in the galaxy. Some aliens thought it was safer to let humans die. Grace was angry, but she stayed focused on what mattered. "Tell me the truth about the Void Swarm. What are its real weaknesses? How can we really fight it?" The alien looked at her for a long time. Then he reached for a data device. "This contains everything we know, the real information, not what we've been sharing. Use it well." As Grace left with the device, she saw the first of the Concorde ships preparing to leave Earth's orbit. The exodus had begun. Soon humanity would be mostly alone, with only a handful of alien allies and a seemingly impossible fight ahead. The day the Concorde ships left was both sad and strange. Millions of people watched the sky as the massive vessels rose from Earth's orbit and disappeared into the darkness of space. 1 million humans went with them, chosen by a mix of lottery and special skills. Families were split apart. Some cried as they said goodbye. Others felt anger toward those who chose to leave. But there was no time for long goodbyes. Earth had work to do. In her lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, Olivia Chen studied the data Admiral Winters had gotten from the alien commander. What she found made her both hopeful and afraid. "The Void Swarm isn't just a random force," she told the Emergency Council that night. "It's a weapon. Someone made it thousands of years ago to destroy advanced life. And like any weapon, it has weaknesses." The council room was quiet as everyone took in this news. President Lopez was the first to speak. "What kind of weaknesses? How can we use them?" Olivia pointed to the screens around the room. "The swarm has a central control node. If we can reach it and shut it down, the rest will fall apart. The problem is that it's hidden deep inside the swarm, protected by billions of smaller units." "Can we build a ship that could reach it?" asked Admiral Winters. "Maybe," Olivia said, "but it would be a one-way trip." As the months passed, more people began to doubt Earth's choice to stay and fight. Some groups tried to build their own ships to follow the Concorde. Others attacked the defense installations, believing that fighting was useless. Security forces had to protect the scientists and builders who were working to save humanity. Alan Keyes, once just a data analyst, now led Earth's intelligence service. His job was to find those who would hurt Earth's chances of survival. It was hard work that he didn't enjoy. "I never thought I'd be hunting other humans," he told Grace one night as they looked over reports of sabotage. "I became an analyst to understand alien cultures, not to arrest my own people." Grace put a hand on his shoulder. "We're doing what we have to do. These people are scared. Fear makes them do terrible things." Not all the news was bad. Linda Foster had convinced more aliens to stay and help. Nearly 50,000 aliens from different species now worked alongside humans. They brought knowledge and skills that humans didn't have. One of them, a scientist named Dren, helped Olivia make a breakthrough with her work on phase shift technology. This new invention might allow a ship to slip through the Void Swarm's defenses. This could work, Dren said as they looked at the test results, but the power requirements are enormous, and the pilot would need to make adjustments in real time. We'll find a way, Olivia said. We always do. The Earth's moon had been transformed. What was once a quiet, empty place was now covered with weapons platforms, launch bays, and defense shields. The Luna shield was complete, a massive cannon that could fire energy beams capable of cutting through the densest parts of the Void Swarm. Commander Davis walked through the main control room, checking that everything was ready. The tracking system showed that the Void Swarm was moving faster than expected. It would reach the edge of Earth's solar system in just a few weeks. Are we ready? Asked a young officer beside him. Nathan looked at the screens showing Earth's defenses. They had done so much in so little time. But would it be enough? We have to be, he said simply. That night, as most of Earth slept, the long-range sensors picked up the first signal. At the edge of the solar system, a dark cloud was forming. The Void Swarm had arrived 3 years earlier than predicted. The final battle for Earth's survival was about to begin. The first attack came at Neptune. The distant blue planet was the first to face the Void Swarm. Earth's outpost there had only a small crew of 20 people. They sent video of the attack before all contact was lost. In the command center on the moon, Admiral Winters watched the footage with her officers. The Void Swarm looked like a dark cloud, but up close they could see it was made of billions of tiny machines. They moved together like a school of fish or a flock of birds, changing shape as they surrounded Neptune's small base. How long until they reach us? Asked President Lopez, her face grim on the video screen from Earth. At their current speed, 2 months, said Grace. Maybe less. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Every ship that could fly was made ready for battle. Every weapon that could fire was loaded and prepared. People who weren't soldiers trained to become fighters. Everyone had a job to do. Sam Russell had been a test pilot before the crisis. Now he led Stardancer Squadron, Earth's best fighter pilots. They flew the newest ships built with alien technology and human ingenuity. Remember your training, Sam told his pilots as they prepared for their first mission. The swarm adapts quickly. Don't use the same move twice. Kate, his wife and co-pilot, squeezed his hand. We've got this, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Their mission was to meet the swarm near Jupiter and test Olivia's new weapons. 50 ships flew out to face an enemy that numbered in the billions. It seemed hopeless, but they had to try. The battle was chaos. The Void Swarm moved faster than anything Sam had ever seen. It surrounded ships and tore them apart. The new weapons worked for a while, but then the swarm adapted. They're learning our patterns, Sam shouted into his radio as he dodged the dark mass. We need to be random, unpredictable. Sam noticed something strange as he flew. The swarm seemed to hesitate when his ship sent out certain signals. He changed his ship's communication frequency to a pattern based on prime numbers, numbers that can only be divided by themselves in 1. Try setting your comm systems to these frequencies, he sent to the other pilots. It worked. The swarm couldn't predict their movements when they used prime number patterns. It gave the pilots precious seconds to fire their weapons and escape, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Of the 50 ships that flew out, only 23 returned. Sam's ship was badly damaged. Kate had been injured when part of their ship was hit. As medical teams took Kate away, Sam found Olivia waiting in the landing bay. I saw the battle data, she said. How did you know to use prime numbers? Sam shook his head. I didn't know. It was just a guess. Professor Miller once told me that prime numbers are important in the universe. They show up in places you wouldn't expect. Olivia's eyes widened. Jack theorized that the Void Swarm uses mathematical patterns to coordinate. It's billions of parts. If we can disrupt those patterns, we might have a chance, Sam finished. The knowledge from the battle helped Earth prepare better defenses. The Luna shield was reprogrammed to use prime number frequencies. New jammers were built that could confuse the swarm's communication. But Earth had less time than they thought. The swarm accelerated after passing Jupiter. It would reach Earth in just 3 weeks. Commander Davis oversaw the evacuation of civilians to underground shelters. There wasn't room for everyone. Millions would have to stay on the surface and hope the defenses held. "We're as ready as we can be," Nathan told the War Council. "But I won't lie. Our chances aren't good." Admiral Winters stood up. "Then we'll just have to improve those chances," she said. "I have news. We're not alone anymore." On the main screen, a small fleet of ships appeared near Mars. They were Concord vessels, but they weren't fleeing, they were coming back. The returning ships called themselves the Conscience Fleet. They were led by General Vex, an old and respected warrior from a species that looked like tall lizards. Vex had disagreed with the Concord's decision to run away. "I could not abandon those who chose to fight," Vex told Earth's leaders when they met on the moon base. Neither could these others. The Conscience Fleet wasn't large, only 57 ships. But they brought something more valuable than numbers. They brought hope and new information. "We've been gathering data on the Void Swarm for months," said Vex, showing holographic images of the enemy. "And we've made a discovery. The swarm isn't a natural thing. It's a weapon created long ago by a species that no longer exists. We already learned that from the data Admiral Winters obtained," said President Lopez. Vex nodded his scaled head. "Yes, but we found something new. The swarm has a central node, a control center. It's hidden deep inside what used to be the Andromeda Galaxy." Olivia Chen leaned forward. "If we could reach this node, could we shut down the swarm?" "Possibly," said Vex, "but Andromeda is over 2 million light-years away. Even with our fastest ships, it would take years to reach it." The room fell silent. Then Olivia spoke again. "Maybe not. The phase shift technology I've been working on, it doesn't just move through space, it can create temporary bridges like wormholes. If we can make a large enough bridge, we could send a ship directly to the central node," finished Admiral Winters. The next few days were a race against time. The Void Swarm was now past Mars and approaching Earth rapidly. The Luna shield and Earth's other defenses were ready. But everyone knew they could only slow the enemy, not stop it. Olivia and Dren worked day and night to finish the phase shift device. It would need to be mounted on a ship that would have to fly directly into the heart of the swarm's central node. "The problem is the pilot," Olivia told the War Council. "The bridge will collapse after the ship goes through. Whoever flies this mission won't be coming back." No one spoke for a long moment. Then a voice came from the back of the room. "I'll do it." Barbara Harris stepped forward. She was in her 70s, a retired astronaut from the early days of space exploration. She had volunteered to help train younger pilots when the crisis began. "Barbara, this is a suicide mission," said Sam Russell, who was now in charge of all fighter operations since his wife Kate was still recovering from her injuries. Barbara smiled. "I know that, son. But I've lived a full life. I was there when we first reached the moon. I helped build the first Mars base. I've had my time. These young folks still have lives ahead of them." Despite arguments from others, Barbara's mind was made up. She would pilot the mission. The ship was named Hope's Light. As preparations continued, the Void Swarm reached Earth's orbit. The Luna shield fired, cutting through the dark mass. Fighter ships flew continuous missions, using the prime number disruption to create temporary gaps in the swarm. But for every part they destroyed, more came to replace it. General Vex led his fleet in defense of Earth's space stations. The alien ships fought with strange weapons humans had never seen before. They managed to protect the stations but took heavy losses. On Earth, people watched the sky turn dark as the swarm began to surround the planet. In some places, parts of the swarm broke through the atmosphere and touched the ground. Everything they touched was consumed. Time was running out. Hope's Light needed to launch, but Earth's main spaceports were now under attack. They needed to create a safe corridor for Barbara's ship to leave Earth and reach the point where it could activate the phase shift device. Alan Keyes, using his knowledge of the swarm's patterns, worked with Sam to plan one final desperate assault. They would use every remaining ship to create a path through the swarm for Hope's Light. "It's time," said Admiral Winters as the plan was finalized. "May God help us all." The day of humanity's last stand began with silence. The constant noise of battle stopped as both sides prepared for what was coming. Earth's remaining ships gathered near the moon. There were just over 300 left, a tiny force against the countless machines of the void swarm. Barbara Harris sat in the pilot seat of Hope's Light, checking systems one last time. The ship was small but packed with advanced technology. At its heart was Olivia's phase shift device, ready to create a bridge across 2 million light-years of space. "All systems ready," Barbara reported. Her voice was calm, as if she was going on a normal flight. In the command center, Admiral Winters gave the order. "All ships, begin Operation Breakthrough." The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. Every fighter launched at once, their weapons firing in prime number patterns that confused the swarm. The Luna shield fired at full power, cutting a path through the enemy. General Vex's alien ships formed a protective ring around Hope's Light. Barbara flew through the chaos, following the narrow path created by the others. Parts of the swarm tried to close in around her, but each time another ship would fly into the way, sacrificing itself to keep her path clear. Sam Russell led his fighters in tight formation, drawing away large sections of the swarm. "Keep moving," he shouted as his ships darted between the dark masses. "Don't let them predict you." From his ship, Alan Keyes directed the battle plan, using his knowledge of patterns to guide the fighters where they would be most effective. "The path is collapsing at Sector 4, he warned. "We need more disruption there." But there were too many enemies. The swarm began to overwhelm Earth's defenses. Ships were lost one by one. The path for Hope's Light was closing fast. Alan saw that they needed one more big distraction. Without telling anyone his plan, he flew his command ship directly into the densest part of the swarm, setting his engines to overload. "For Earth," he said quietly as his ship exploded, taking a massive section of the swarm with it. The sacrifice created the opening Barbara needed. Hope's Light shot through the gap and reached safe distance from Earth. Now she needed to activate the phase shift device. "Beginning phase shift sequence," Barbara reported. "If this works, you should see the swarm react immediately." The device powered up, creating a glowing tear in space in front of the ship. Through it, Barbara could see a strange, dark shape, the central node of the void swarm, waiting in the distant Andromeda galaxy. "Here goes nothing," she said, and flew directly into the portal. The journey took only seconds. Suddenly, Barbara found herself in unknown space, facing a massive black structure. This was the heart of the enemy, the control center that directed the billions of machines attacking Earth. Barbara didn't hesitate. She flew Hope's Light straight at the central node, activating Olivia's weapon as she went. The ship crashed into the structure, releasing energy designed to rewrite the swarm's base programming. Back at Earth, everyone watched and waited. For a few terrible minutes, nothing changed. The swarm continued its attack. People began to lose hope. Then, suddenly, the swarm stopped moving. The billions of tiny machines froze in place. Slowly, they began to drift apart, losing the patterns that had made them so deadly. The great dark cloud that had surrounded Earth started to thin and break up. "It worked," whispered Olivia, tears in her eyes. Barbara did it. 5 years later, Earth had changed again. With the void swarm gone, the planet began to rebuild. Many of the conquered ships eventually returned, surprised to find humanity not only alive but victorious. Captain Eliza Morgan, once the first human to meet the aliens and now leading Earth's diplomatic corps, stood before the United Nations. Gaiti. The wall behind her hung a new flag, a symbol for all the species who had chosen to fight rather than run. "Today we sign a new charter," Eliza said. "Not just for Earth, but for all the peoples of our galaxy. We pledge to face future threats together, with honesty and courage." Outside the building stood a monument listing the names of those who had died in the battle. Alan Keyes, half of Sam's squadron, countless others, and at the top, Barbara Harris. Below the names was a simple message. When the galaxy abandoned them, humanity chose to stay and fight. In doing so, they saved everyone.